Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you, and what do you know? A podcast, an actual podcast episode. Nick is not here, but he's coming back. He's making a return, much like, what's his name, John Walker?
Wow.
The agent, right? Or I don't know. I don't know if he was as evil as he was in his previous life. But anyway, Nick will be back, I think, with the new Mission Impossible film, The Final Reckoning. And I'm excited to have him back. And in the interim, when he's not available to join me on that particular week, or if he can't see the movie, or in some cases, Nick doesn't want to watch the movies that we're covering. And by in some cases, I mean 75% of the time. So if that's the case, then I'll usually get a guest in here. So this week, I know Nick did not get a chance to check out Marvel's new Thunderbolts. And I refuse to call it the other thing, although it will come up tonight. We'll talk about it a little bit. I want to ask my guest's opinion on that. But I just want to tell everybody real quick, if you're listening to this on the RSS feed, if you're listening to the audio version of this, whether it's Spotify, Apple, whatever, this is essentially gone from 2 Ps on a podcast to the Awards Garage podcast to now just Lights, Camera, Garage. What I decided, and I'm sorry for all the changes in the last few months, but what I decided to do was basically have the podcast be one thing, and the Awards Garage be one thing, but I kind of wanted to keep them somewhat related, so that's why the garage had that kind of tie-in exists there. Because the whole thing is really just the garage. I mean, that's what it is. But this is the podcast where we're going to break down whatever movie we're talking about that week. And like I said, this week it is Thunderbolts. That's what's going on. So you didn't click the wrong button. This isn't 2021 on your pod feed. This is correct. And I have a special guest joining me this week because, like I said, Nick is not quite back in the saddle yet. And it is my friend Julio, my actual friend, my personal friend in real life, but also my podcast buddy, who is a bit of a super fan of the MCU film. So I thought, who better to get in here to talk about the new Thunderbolts than Julio from the Contrarians? What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, you know that this would be almost as if Nick had been here. I mean, him and I, we share.
No, because he would hate it, right? Do we think he would hate this? He would probably hate this, right?
Yes, it would
Yeah.
be like a 1, maybe. He would say Florence Pugh is good, 1 for his score. So Gerald, what you're saying is you have the Awards Garage, and then
Yeah.
this is this 2 Ps on a pod asterisk, or is it the Awards Garage asterisk? When do you do the reveal where it's Camera
Asterisk.
Garage?
When you first asked me that, I thought you were asking colon. And I was like, no, there's no colon. But now I get what you're doing. You're doing a joke with the Thunderbolts. I'm sorry, I'm slow. Yeah, this is the Awards Garage with a little asterisk, and then we're doing the reveal. I wish I could have gotten Florence Pugh to do it, but she hasn't taken my calls in several months. But yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying, right? I just wanted the podcast to kind of be one thing because it's like 30 minute to an hour reviews of one specific movie, and it's a discussion. I felt like that was different than what I'm doing on the YouTube channel, and I didn't want the two kind of demographics to be forced to like cross over and whatever. So the podcast is going to be a separate thing, predominantly audio, but I mean, obviously I'll throw this video version up on YouTube as well, like I used to do in the old days. So you're the first one, man. I'm actually renumbering. I'm starting with episode 1.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Really, really digging into that
Yeah.
comic book archetype. This is a
No, yeah.
relaunch. New creative
the,
team. No, same creative team. Well-
it's the original edition, man. Is that what they call it? What do they call it? They just call it a number 1 is what they call it.
It's a number 1, a new collectible,
something.
I guess, exclusive, full cover,
Mhm.
holographic,
Yeah.
something special.
Yeah.
I mean, do whatever you want, Gerald. I just follow you whatever name you put on it, whichever
I know,
platform
man.
you're on. I just let my subscription kind of like take me wherever it is that you are.
Yeah. No, I know.
So-
You're great, man. We're patrons of each other's show, and we've been friends for a long time, and you guys do a great thing over there. Why don't you tell everybody real quick about the Contrarians? Give a brief, because if they don't know you, it's kind of a unique show, and I love what you guys do, you and Alex. So tell them real quick, just briefly about the Contrarians, and then we'll get into our discussion of Thunderbolts here.
Briefly, because I think that it's I don't want to take away from the Thunderbolts here, but
Oh, God.
we talk about movies and the Contrarians. We don't really do new releases. We mostly talk about movies that have been out for a while because what we focus on is their Rotten Tomatoes score, which
Mhm.
is fresh, rotten, depending on the critical consensus, as they call it. And the fun
Right.
of it is that we argue against that critical consensus. So a fresh movie on the tomato meter, we just pick it apart as if it was a bad movie. If
Mhm.
it's a rotten movie, then we do what we can to praise it, to make it sound like it's a
Right.
great movie. And that's the first half of the show. The second half of the show, we tell you how we really feel, which sometimes matches the first half,
There you
sometimes
go.
doesn't. It's fun. We just try to have fun with it along the way, I guess, because we've been doing it for a while. The real talk conversation has become a little more like, oh, it's actual criticism, and not because we fancy ourselves
Sure.
like movie critics necessarily, but
Sure.
because I think that the the conversations, once you've been talking to someone for years about
Right.
movies, you kind of level up. Like those conversations start becoming deeper and I would hope a little more interesting.
Yeah.
So if you listen to the episodes we have now versus what we were doing, 8 years ago, obviously there's a sound quality and I just kind of like as far as the polish of the podcast, there's a difference. But also, I
Sure.
think as far as what we have to say about movies, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, you've been doing it forever too, Gerald. So don't you
True.
ever hit that moment where you're like, all right, I kind of have to push myself to say something interesting because I don't want to make the same
Right.
point that I made, five
Right.
times in a
You have
row.
right. You guys have, and most people in the space for a long time, you eventually kind of cross that line. You cross over where it's like, because in your case with the Contrarians, like it is still a shtick, but it's like it kind
Right.
of crossed over where it went from that to a little bit more in the real talk segment where it's actually two dudes trying to like not defend necessarily, but really make their point, and it's like you guys know each other so well that at least for the two of you, the shtick's kind of run its course. So it's like, what else can we do to make this conversation engaging? And I think it works for the listener too, because I really love listening to you guys. So, it's all. By the way, I meant to tell you, I didn't do this on your behalf, okay? But I think of all the people that I interact with on a regular basis, you might be the most excited about this if it ends up happening.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm just letting you know. I don't know if I can't remember if I told you this in the chat, in the group chat or not, but I recently applied to be a Rotten Tomatoes critic. So
No, you didn't
just letting you
tell
know,
me specifically.
a little
And if you make the
contrarians action,
announcement,
perhaps.
yeah, I don't think so. But God, I would love to be able to quote you on the show because that's something we do. We pull
Yeah,
quotes from Red Tomatoes
yeah,
and we make
yeah,
fun of them. So
yeah.
that
You'd
would be
have to
great.
pull mine. You'd have to. You'd have to pull mine for sure. And it would have to be like a weekly segment. Let's see what Gerald said about and
Dude, the Gerald
bash my.
the Gerald quote. How
Um,
do you? That takes forever though, right? Like you apply and
it's
they
it's
get back
funny
to you.
that you asked that because we went to where did we go? It was my son's birthday last month, his sixth birthday, and we took him to like this little weekend getaway to I don't know if you ever heard of Great Wolf Lodge. It's like a
Uh-uh.
huge. It's basically like a hotel, but it's like a resort almost, but it's a resort for families. So it's like a lot of kid friendly stuff and water slides inside the hotel and all kinds of shit. So we went there and it was like a 3 hour drive to get there. And that's when I did it. And it took like 2 of the 3 hours to do it on my phone because you have to like literally write essays as to why I should be chosen, for my
Well, maybe
voice
it
to
would
be
go
heard or
faster if
whatever.
you were
So,
not driving. That's next
yeah.
time. Just
Well,
do
my
it while
wife
you're
was
at home.
driving. Yeah. I was in the passenger seat. I guess I should have led with that. But yeah. Um, but anyway, okay. So thanks for being here, Julio. I'm a big fan of yours, and I just love talking. It's been too long, man, talking movies with you. Seriously, I mean,
No
we're
kidding.
always,
Yeah.
we're always making fun of each other, and that's great too, and taking jabs. But when it gets down to like talking about a movie or performance or whatever, like it's just been too long. So I'm glad you're here for this one because I know you're a fan of it, and you'll probably be able to explain some of this shit to me too, which will be great.
I that's
So
part of the fun.
yeah, for sure. So we're going to be talking about Thunderbolts, and let's see, directed by Jake Schreier. Is that right? Am I saying that right? I know he directed the Beef television series on Netflix. That's the only thing I'm familiar with, though. It stars Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Lewis Pullman. I'm excited about to talk about him a little bit. David Harbour, Wyatt Russell, and many more. And it says after finding themselves ensnared in a death trap, should be six, but we'll get into that too. Seven disillusioned cast-offs must embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront their darkest corners of their past. Julio, what we do on the show, man, and I know it's a new iteration of the show, but I talked to Nick about it. We're going to keep it. So we do score our films out of 10, our individual scores, and we don't tell each other up front. We're going to do it before the review. So you haven't told me anything. I can guess because you're you, but you haven't told me any specifics, and I haven't told you anything either, except for my odd affinity for Florence Pugh. But we'll get into that if you want to. So let's tell everybody what our scores out of 10 are. I'm going to count us in from 3, and then we will reveal it to the public. You ready, buddy?
I am ready.
All right, here we go on Thunderbolts. 3, 2, 1. All right. So tell the audio audience what you got over there.
Well, I got a double header here. It's my
It's, yeah,
score, and it's also a promotion for the Live Stream for the Cure.
it's an advertisement. Yeah, no, it's great.
This is the shirt from
We'll
last
talk.
year, which was the 8th year. So I give it an
Yeah,
8, Gerald,
8 from Julio and a 7 from me
with a
on
smiley face.
Thunderbolts with a smiley face, which gives us a 7.5 overall on our cumulative score. Live stream from the Cure getting a little shout out with the reveal, score reveal tonight. I like that. So an 8 from you, a 7 from me. I, jokingly like to kind of, poke you a little bit in the group chat, and when you and I talk about the MCU thing just kind of weighing me down lately, and I know you don't necessarily feel that way. We don't have to get into any of the other films unless they come up in the conversation, but just tell me why this version of Thunderbolts and this film in the MCU worked for you, because an 8's a great score.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I definitely think that you get to experience it uh, a little differently if you're somebody that's all in on
Hmm.
what they've been doing for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since Endgame. Um, I don't want to fall into the trap of uh, saying that somebody that's into the MCU and appreciates this movie a certain way is a better movie watcher than somebody who doesn't, because it's not about
Sure.
that. But I
Hmm.
think that there is something to watching it and absorbing the big picture and having that big picture work for you. And so when that's happening, well, something like Thunderbolts that's kind of paying off character arcs from several characters from several years ago, from several stories, right?
Hmm.
That's gonna work for someone like me way differently
Sure.
than it would work for somebody like you who hasn't like really kept up with it, and who even
Right.
whenever you like dip back in, you have not been particularly interested in what was going on. So
Hmm.
there is one of the reasons why I'm kind of relieved. A bullet that we dodge constantly on our show, because we are not doing new releases, is that I don't have to watch anything that I don't want to. And
Okay.
sometimes I'll see people's reactions to like the latest Marvel movie, and my instant response is like, but why were you even watching it to begin with, right? And I get
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
You're watching it because it's a new movie and you have to cover it. Not you, but I'm talking like critics in general.
Right.
But I think that there has to be a point where you have to be okay as an audience member, as a critic, to just be able to recognize, okay, well, this is definitely no longer for me, and
Hmm.
that is not necessarily a failure of the movie, and that is
Sure.
not a failure of you as a watcher. That's just like, well, not everybody can like everything,
Right.
but when you're part of that target audience, it definitely, if it's done well, it hits you in a way that it's not going to hit the average person. So if you don't know who these characters are, or if you kind of know them just very superficially, then this is, I mean, I think this is still an entertaining movie because they have some pretty good action sequences. I think the comedy hits more often than not. And
Hmm. Yeah, a couple things I want to say on that, because you brought up a couple of really good points, and I'm glad we're going to get to talk about here in the beginning. First of all, I think Thunderbolts. I mean, I gave it a 7, which is a good score, especially for an MCU movie. I gave Brave New World, which would have been the most recent. I gave that one a 5, which also, I mean, I kind of liked it, but I felt like there was a lot of weird shit that we didn't really need in that film. But anyway, we're
why
not
is
reviewing
Hulk
that
red?
particular one. But I think Thunderbolts, you don't really have to have all those connections, which is kind of what I liked about it. I felt like it was a pretty wholly contained story. Now, of course, there were the references there, and if you were invested in the series and you knew the characters and whatever, then of course it was probably more meaningful for you. But it also, they did a good job of kind of like inserting those little one-liners or a little bit of dialogue or an Easter egg or whatever that would kind of connect it for those that were interested but didn't have time to watch everything. But even without that, I feel like you could go see this movie. My son doesn't. I mean, he's 11. He doesn't. He hasn't seen. He's seen maybe, what is there, like 36 or something like that movies. He's seen maybe 10 of them. Like he's seen maybe 10 of them, and he really enjoyed this. Like you don't have to have that, like, map to get to this movie to really understand what's going on. So I appreciated that, first of all. Second of all, I hear what you're saying, and I've answered that criticism before, not from you, but it's like, why are you seeing these things if they keep letting you down? And that's true. And I kind of ask myself that sometimes. But the thing with it, Julio, is like I want it to work. Do you know what I mean? Like I keep going because
But life's too
I do.
short, Gerald.
I mean, you're right, but I do love this genre of storytelling, the superhero, the hero, and the villain story. Like inherently, I mean, like I'm going to be 50 this year, and I can remember the days of like Superman, Batman, like 80s, 90s, and up until like the Dark Knight, even and the first Iron Man. Like that was event cinema, man, and it was like you just couldn't wait for the next caped hero to come out with a movie so you could be in line with your family or friends or whatever to see it. And there was a rush about that, and it usually came at the hands of that type of filmmaking and kind of like larger than life story that's derived more times than not from a comic book. But I keep going, and yes, I'm doing a movie podcast, and that's part of it. But Thunderbolts actually is a good example of kind of what I'm talking about because I feel like I would have missed something. I would have missed out on something had I decided not to see this because great performances, great direction, a very grounded, like real kind of depiction. I wouldn't even really call these guys superheroes. I mean, I know there's a couple of them that have the serum and all that shit, but like, what I mean? It's not like aliens from other planets and shit. You know what I'm saying? It's like people that are just going through some shit that decide to, it's like a found family film, really.
Like
So,
there is one guy that's basically Superman.
well, yeah, but you know what I mean? He's not one of the Thunder. Well, I guess he is. You're talking about
He
Century.
is
Well, so is he
Sentry,
one of the
yeah.
Thunderbolts? He's not, right?
I mean,
Or is he?
by the end of the movie,
Okay.
he
All right.
is part of the team.
All right. Let's drop a
It's
spoiler warning on everybody too, because I didn't think about that. But Marvel's spoiling this thing all over social media, so I don't know if we really need to. But
I haven't looked at the numbers. Surprisingly, I haven't even seen. Well, I've been so busy, I haven't really been on social media much the last
okay,
couple of days. But I guess
yeah.
it's not doing well, right? That has to be why
What did it
they
do? Like,
decided to.
I didn't look it up before we recorded, but I think yesterday or the day before I saw it did like 70 million opening weekend, which was 5 million less than Brave New World. So
Oof.
I would say yes, it's struggling because it's being released at the beginning of the summer season, and it should be better than Brave New World. It should be doing better than Brave New World.
I think it's a better movie, but it's
Yeah, for
also
sure.
even when it's Brave New World was still a Captain America movie, even if it didn't have the original Captain America on it. And this is a movie with characters that nobody really knows. He has like a Black Widow that's not the original Black Widow. I mean, it's not the same thing,
Yeah,
I guess. But yeah,
yeah,
that's the only reason why I think that they're just changing the title and revealing the big thing at the end.
yeah.
Uh,
We'll talk about that. So let's. That was our general kind of like we both liked it. And I wanted to just kind of answer that criticism because I do agree with you, but I just have this thing where it's just like like if I went to see like I'm a huge horror nerd, which you know that, and like if I
right.
went to see 4 or 5 slashers in a row in like a year's time or whatever, and they were all horrible and they all sucked, and I'm like, God, this is the worst. I'm gonna still go see slashers every time one comes out. You know what I mean? Like I just love the rut when it's really good. It's good. You know what I mean? And I'm just looking for that to kind of be reborn within me or whatever. And I don't the lore part of it and knowing the encyclopedia like of the characters and all that stuff, like I don't have time to study all that, but I want to, I just don't have time to. So I want to be able to go see the movie and the movie like basically give me everything I need in that 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I feel like with
Right.
Thunderbolts it was
But
pretty well contained.
there is a point because this keeps the story keeps growing at this point. So short of them doing a hard reset, they are at a point where they have to make hard choices when it comes to appealing to everybody, and focusing on the people that are still keeping up with everything, right? Because otherwise you just become, there's too many redundancies, right?
Sure, yeah.
There's, if I watch like all the TV shows and I watch all the movies, I really don't need a new movie to catch me up, and spend
Right.
like 15-20 minutes catching me up.
Right.
But the average person would. And so I imagine investors are like, fuck it, you need to appeal to everybody because we need to make the money
Sure.
back. But at the same time, I don't know, Feige, whoever is making the creative decisions of saying like, no, we're going to keep painting like this bigger and bigger picture. And if it makes them, it's like when you're reading comics, and I've had this conversation with Alex before, my co-host. Uh, what would happen in my experience reading comics, and I know it's not unique, is like you just jump into the pool with issue like 57 of something.
Hmm.
And ideally, what happens is like that is so interesting that you are compelled to reading the previous 56, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Because
okay.
it was so interesting. So the first time you read issue 57, you maybe not quite get it all the way, but it's good enough. It's interesting enough that you want to see how you got there,
The
and that you definitely
origin,
want to see what
sure.
happens
Yeah.
next. Right. And so, yeah, ideally something like Thunderbolts. Let's say Thunderbolts is the first movie that anybody watches in the MCU, but it makes them curious. It's like, all right, so how did they get here? Because I like these
Uh-huh.
characters. So
Yeah.
what else is there? You know, and so you have the first
Right.
Black Widow movie, you have the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, and so on. And I mean, for them to do that kind of stuff. Uh, in movies and TV, stuff that I'm used to seeing in comics, that I find that fascinating,
That's
and
good.
that requires making those choices where sometimes somebody that hasn't watched everything might feel a little alienated, and it's like how do you keep them interested while also making it clear that they're missing some stuff, they might
Right.
want to go back and see it. So
Right. That's a good point. Real quick, let's give a spoiler warning. So going forward, me and Julio are just going to discuss whatever happens in the movie that comes up in conversation. I know we're going to talk about some of the stuff we were mentioning earlier about the last act of the film. So if you have not seen Thunderbolts and you don't want to be spoiled, then come back to the rest of this episode after you see it. Or I would also advise you do not go on Marvel's social media. All right. Okay. Their own social media. So I like that you brought that up about the comics and kind of mirroring that type of storytelling, because I do agree with you. It reminds me, I didn't read a whole lot of comics. My dad would take me to the comic book shop, and I would read them, occasionally, but I never like episodically read them like in succession, really. But what it reminds me of that I have a little bit more of a connection of is to like a really good TV show, like or in some cases 2 TV shows. You know how there'll be
mhm,
characters on one that show up on another, and if you didn't watch the other show, then you might not know why
right.
why they're connected or whatever. So a lot of that stuff happened. It really still does happen, but even pre-streaming, it would happen a lot with big network shows and characters crossing over and stuff like that. So it kind of reminds me of that a little bit too. And if you're invested, God love you. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I know you are personally, but I mean, just people in general. Like, I listen to some podcasts and they have experts or they have guests on their show that this is what they do. Like they literally just follow the MCU and the DCU and comic book related stuff to keep up with it, to be able to talk about it on the show. You know what I mean? And it's
Oh
gotten to
man,
a point where
that's a little too
you
intense.
need experts. Yeah, it's intense. Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean, self-proclaimed experts. Gerald, I can call myself an
yeah.
expert, and I haven't even.
Well,
I get it. I get
compared to me, you're Albert Einstein over there. Um, So let's talk about we gave the spoiler warning. So real quick to get it out of the way, the movie comes out officially on May 2nd, I think was the national release. I went to the day they had like a early screening the day before at my local theater. That's when I saw it. But I think the official release was May 2nd. It's obviously called Thunderbolts. It has that little asterisk on it on the
uh
title and on the poster and all that. I mean, it's all over. They're definitely emphasizing the asterisks. Okay, they have been for months.
Yes, Kevin
So
Feige had been like teasing people about it. It's like, I don't know, maybe it means
yeah,
something,
yeah.
maybe it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you what I thought it meant. Well,
Uh,
there's two things I thought it meant, but hang on a second. So anyway, so that was what it was for I don't know the last few months since the first trailer came out or whatever. And the movie comes out on Friday the 2nd. You and I are recording this on the 6th, which is Tuesday. Yesterday on the 5th, so this would have been roughly 3 days after the national release. They had most of the cast show up to an event. Do you remember what event it was? I actually don't even know if it was like a
no,
premiere
I
or
just
something
saw
like that.
the
Yeah.
tweet. That's all I saw.
So anyway, the Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Sebastian Stan is in California. It was some premiere. They were premiering it for some group or something. But anyway, they all come there and they reveal. I guess after the movie, they tear off the poster, and there was a huge billboard in LA that was doing the same thing. And instead of saying Thunderbolts, it now has the asterisk in the front of it, and it says Marvel's New Avengers. So we find out in the, I guess, last like couple minutes of the movie leading into the end credit scene of this movie that they are going to be the new Avengers. Now I want to get your opinion, but real quick, I'll tell you what I thought it was with the asterisk thing.
Uh-huh.
So I had a vague familiarity with the Dark Avengers from the
Uh-huh.
comics, and based on the characters that were in Thunderbolts, I was like, well, that looks like the Dark Avengers to me. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
thought
Right.
that's going to be our asterisk. Then even more so, even like kind of more generically, when I saw the trailer, I can't remember. It was one of the later trailers. It was like a couple weeks before it came out, and then definitely when I saw it in the theater when I was sitting there, I thought this. But there's a whole storyline where Florence Pugh, Yelena, uh, her soccer team or something like that, her softball team was called the
Yes.
Thunderbolts, and so
Uh-huh.
that's why Red Guardian decides to call them the Thunderbolts, and nobody likes the name except him, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, well, the asterisk is just because it's a temporary name, like it's Thunderbolts, but we're going to change it. That's not what we want. So that's what I kind of thought, you know what I mean? Because you would kind of put an asterisk on it, like, yeah, this is the name, but just stay tuned. It's going to be something different. So I kind of thought even like it might not even be anything. It might just be they're going to change their name to something else. But anyway, I want to hear what you thought of them kind of, first of all, the name change and them being the Avengers and how you think that's going to kind of factor in. And then what did you think of this reveal just a few days after the release here?
Not in that order, but first, when I was watching the movie, the whole thing with the soccer team came up, or football team, I thought that the asterisk was going to be just sponsored by, whatever the name of
Oh,
that.
okay. That
And I
would
was
have
like,
been
oh,
cool
that's
too.
cute. Yeah.
That would have been cool
Um,
too.
on the way to the release of the movie, my friends and we were talking, we were speculating, and the thing with Thunderbolts, Gerald, and I I gave you homework, and I understand you're a busy man with
Right,
children,
right.
so you couldn't
Sorry.
get to it. But the
Yeah.
the the first iteration of the Thunderbolts in the Marvel comics was kind of a big deal because it really surprised people. They pitched it to you as this standard superhero comic, and the first issue came out. And when you got to the final page, the very last page of Thunderbolts #1, uh, it was the big reveal that these superheroes that you've been following for 22 pages were actually villains pretending to be superheroes, and
Okay.
that was their big plan. In the context of the story, and I don't want to get too nerdy and bore everybody here, but in the context of the story at that time, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, all the big heroes had disappeared. So there was this void that needed to be filled, and
Hmm.
these new heroes suddenly show up, and then they get praise from the government, and it's like, oh, it's the Thunderbolts. And then at the final page, they reveal that they're bad guys. Uh, so if you know that, if you've read the comics, and then you see that they're making a movie about Thunderbolts, you're like, all right, there's a pretty good chance they're going to try to do something similar. Obviously, they
Hmm.
can't do what they did in the comics because you know who they are. We already know who the Thunderbolts
Sure.
are. They're not going to surprise us. It's not like they're going to take like masks off and suddenly they're other people. Uh,
Hmm.
but what is it? There has to be a big twist at the end.
Hmm.
And my friends and I were all pretty sure that it was going to have something to do with the asterisk. The wildest theory I think we had come up with was that this was all taking place on a different reality.
Mm.
And so that's why when you actually watch the movie, the big reveal was going to be that in that world, maybe there were never any Avengers. And that's why the Thunderbolts were like the alpha heroes of that world. It ended
Okay.
up being much simpler than
Sure.
than this. It was just like, oh, well, they become the government sponsor Avengers, or at least like a side of it. Like I know it's already been like, I don't know, 2-3 months since Brave New World, but the Falcon starts his own Avengers at the end of that movie,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
that's actually acknowledged at the end of Thunderbolts that
And this one, and
Sam
that, and
Wilson
that
is not
one,
happy,
that one is before this chronologically, right?
right?
Okay.
Because
All right. Yeah.
at the end, Bucky's talking about how he went to talk to Sam, and he wasn't
Right.
happy
Right.
about the fact that. So by the end of this movie, we have two different teams of Avengers. We have Bucky's
Hmm.
Avengers and Falcon's Avengers, and I mean, that's just awesome. They don't like each other, right? Bucky's team are the scrappy underdogs that nobody respects, or uh,
Sure.
have shady pasts, and the Falcons probably gonna be more like the upright citizens.
Yeah.
But they're gonna have to join forces to battle whatever it is that's happening. That's gonna be the big, is
Well,
it
it'd be
Doctor
Doctor
Doom?
Doom, right?
I
I mean, I
guess. I don't
assume,
know.
but well, okay. So this group that we know as the Thunderbolts. I mean, is that so? You might have to help me out here. But the previous Avengers, what are we talking? We're talking Thor, who's literally a god.
Yeah,
Iron Man, Captain America, right? Black Widow. Um, who else am I forgetting?
Hulk,
Hulk. Yeah. So, a Hawkeye too, I guess
Hawkeye.
technically.
Yeah,
So this group, Bucky, Yelena, and crew here. I mean, is that I don't. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. I mean, maybe I just don't know the lore well enough to buy into it. But this doesn't seem like an Avengers level group here.
I mean, I think
Yes
that's
or
part of the
no?
fun of
Okay. All right.
it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
is true. Okay. All right.
I mean, they are, and they know it. That's, I think that's the brilliance of having them fight somebody like the Sentry, right?
Right.
They're so overmatched. They don't stand a chance, right? And the
Hmm.
fact that they managed to win that battle in a different way, that's pretty awesome. But yeah, no, I think that's what makes it fun. We don't get
Okay.
just the same thing that we had before. These are a very different team of people. Uh,
I
there
guess
is
the. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I don't remember how much you knew or of them as characters, because that's the other thing. Like, they are all people that have very uh,
S-
dark pasts. They've done some
Right.
really bad things, and so that also
Right.
it isn't.
So one of the interesting things about my journey with this film is that I stopped watching. It's so ironic, but I stopped watching the Disney Plus stuff with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So I knew John Walker's situation,
Okay,
killing that dude that was uh, innocent, basically for all intents and purposes, and I knew about the Red Guardian and Yelena from Black Widow because I actually
right,
really liked Black Widow. That was one of my favorite movies. That's probably my top 10 MCU movies. Personally, I really like that one. So I kind of knew about all of them pretty much. Val's always a little bit of an enigma for me. I can't really figure out, and I talked about this in my YouTube review, but I can't really figure out what her deal. I mean, I don't know the comic though. I'm sure people that know like her history or whatever kind of get it, but I just don't understand where one movie she kind of seems like helpless, like just kind of in the background, and then the next movie she's like orchestrating the new Avengers. I don't know. It's a weird
and
jump for me because
you didn't watch the second Black Panther, right? Because she shows up in that one, and
oh, for the vibranium stuff, I think I did see that actually. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. I just don't remember it. I did see
she's
that.
I think it's been a while, but I think that they imply, or they even outright say, that she was dating Martin Freeman. Is it Martin Freeman, the Agent
Oh,
Ross?
yeah. Yeah, okay.
And
All right. So I forgot about all that. Okay.
yeah, no,
But
I think that
anyway,
she's been depicted as this very corrupt manipulator, like a
sure, and I get
politician.
that. And I'm getting that too for sure. So I kind of knew like, okay, this is a weird group. I also saw Ant-Man and the Wasp, although I also don't remember that one. But I know that Ghost, right? Ghost is in that,
Yeah,
I
Ghost.
think. And then I knew the Taskmaster because
From
it's like a really intense power that that is it he or she Taskmaster? She, right?
she's in Black Widow too. She's shows up at the end.
Yeah, she's black. That's right. Yeah. So I know her power is like really powerful. So I remembered her vaguely also. So I kind of had a little backstory on all of them. So I wasn't I didn't have any problems following this, which is really kind of fascinating to me, honestly, because even when I saw Brave New World, I had seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, like I told you,
Uh,
and I remember even thinking, and what is that, like 3 or 4 years ago that show came out? And I remember when I was watching it, and when Nick and I talked about that show like the week after it came out, or talked about that movie, I was thinking, why are they regurgitating all this stuff from the show?
yes.
Because, and that's me saying that. I can't remember shit. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, Sam, dude, you can
Yep.
be Captain America. Like, stop asking if you're worthy
Yep.
to be pleased. Like, you're asking for 8 episodes. You're asking for 2/3 of this movie. Like, you're good, dude. Um, but anyway, in Thunderbolts, it never really even occurred to me to have to like try to connect the dots. I thought they did a really good job of appealing to novices and appealing to people that are in it deep. I thought it was a good marriage of the two, and you could enjoy it. Really regardless of what your history with the MCU was. Obviously, the more you know, the more you probably would have gotten as far as like insider stuff or whatever. I want to talk a little bit about the overall, like, kind of like through thematic through line that exists in Thunderbolts, which kind of surprised me. And I've been reflecting on it quite a bit the last few days. Honestly, I think it was a really brave move, but there's a constant through line of like depression in the film and mental health
Right.
and all of the characters in one way or another kind of suffering from that. And I mentioned earlier that I see it as a found family film, and how by themselves it didn't look like they could prevail over this situation that they were in mentally. But together, maybe they can. And that is such a like larger like end game, pardon the pun, than like what you would get from a typical superhero goal or whatever. Like beat this person, close this portal, like do you know what I mean? But this is more like life and death, like mental health type, like serious shit that millions of actual people deal with every day. So I thought it was cool to kind of like take a otherworldly superhero story, and this literally derived from comic book pages, and bring it into like we can go through this kind of stuff too, that seems very human, when usually superhero characters and villains and stuff don't seem really human to us. They seem other than human. So I want to know kind of like how that sat with you when you were watching it. Did you know that going into it, that it was going to be a huge kind of piece of this movie, first of all, and then when you saw it unfolding, how did it play for you?
No, no, no. I didn't know anything. I try so hard to really. If I don't have to watch the trailer, I won't. So I knew very little. I knew that the Sentry was involved just because eventually, once it's revealed, like everybody talks about it. If you're on
Sure.
social media, you'll find out. And I knew that the Sentry, even though I never read the Sentry comics, I knew enough about the story to know that it was somebody that was kind of his own worst enemy. And in the
Uh-huh.
comics, it was a big reveal because if I remember correctly, he was a Sentry and he was always battling the Void. And then the big reveal at the end was that they were the same person, right?
Okay.
The
I like
movie,
that.
they take a different side of it, but it's still the same idea. Um, I was not I was surprised, but not in the sense of, oh, they did something that was very character driven and very relatable and human. Because honestly, Gerald, I think that the best superhero movies do that every time,
Hmm.
right? Uh, I think that this one maybe jumps out a little more because it's the contrast of what the physical threat is, right? This guy that's basically a god. There's no way that they can beat him, and versus what the final confrontation ends up being, which is like inside his mind. And just
Right.
it's the dude, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but it's the ending of Inside Out 2. They just hug it out. And they
Oh my
you've
God, you're
seen
right.
it. Yeah,
Oh
like
my
when it was
God, you're
happening,
right.
it was like, man, it's joy and
Come here,
anxiety and
buddy.
all those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna be all right.
Uh,
Oh my God,
it
I'm choked up at that analogy, but you're right.
it's
Um,
but it works. When
yeah.
I was watching, I was like, it's how it has to end. This is how they vanquish it, and they don't take the easy way out. So he's not cured even until the very end. He has to keep his mental health in check. That's just not something that fix with one fight or whatever. Um, so in that sense, I was like, good. This is one of the good ones. Where it kind of surprised me, and I went into Thunderbolts with somewhat low expectations, was because the trailer I had seen made it look like, oh, they're just trying to do Suicide Squad, right?
Hmm.
Thunderbolts was a very unique comic book, a very fresh comic book when it came out, back in the late '90s or whatever, and this unfortunately felt just like Marvel trying to chase whatever James Gunn did with the Suicide Squad, a few
Sure.
years ago. It's like, oh, you got these bad guys, and they're going to fight a badder guy, and
Sure.
that. And honestly, I love Florence Pugh, I love David Harbour, I really like all the actors, but all the appearances these characters had in the Marvel universe before this movie hadn't really done it for me.
Mm.
So other than Bucky, like I wasn't really invested in anybody here. So it was a pleasant surprise when I was like, oh, they're doing what I expect them to do, which is like be good actors, and they happen to
Hmm.
be in a really good story. So that was the part that kind of uh, took me by surprise in a good way.
Yeah. Well, how I knew that I liked this movie is that I got emotional during it. I
At
mean,
the
I
end, or when was it?
no. Well, at the end, I got emotional because I was like, "God damn it, we're gonna tie this to something else, aren't we?" No, I got emotional, in the city fight scene or whatever, when she's leaving, Elena's leaving. She's like, "I can't do
Right.
this," and David Harbour, chases after her, as her father, basically father figure, and they have a conversation on the street, and she's like talking about how alone she is and how alone she's been, and she doesn't know what she's doing or why she's doing it, and she's talking about Yelena, Black Widow type stuff. But I mean, we all feel that way. I mean, you could say that about anything that is going on in your life or that you feel like you haven't accomplished that you want to accomplish or whatever. So I don't know. This movie really surprised me. It really did a good job at surprising me because I am a naysayer of these movies. Like I go in super reluctant. I go in super like, okay, this will be a 5 or a 6. It'll be okay. It'll be enjoyable, but I'm never going to watch it again. And this one really surprised me. Like it, I think the performances and the actors, had a lot to do with that. But I mean, it was a witty screenplay. It was, like I said already, kind of tying in other elements from like real world things that people go through that you don't usually see in these types of movies. Even though the analogy's there, the parallel's always there. Like, you want to be the hero and not the villain and, all that stuff. But
dude, speaking of analogies, though, that's how probably the thing that rattled me the most was at the beginning when what's the name of Bunk from The Wire?
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about, but I can't
he's
remember.
the senator here in this movie,
Right?
And he's trying to fight this extremely corrupt politician doing things by the book, and he keeps telling Bucky, "You need to read the reports. We need to write a strongly worded letter. We need to introduce articles of impeachment."
You talking about Chris Bauer? Is that who it is?
No.
What character does he play? Wendell Pierce is who you're talking
Wendell
about.
Pierce, yeah.
Yeah. I love Geraldine Viswanthian too. I love her.
Yeah.
Mel, yeah, she's really good. I love her as an actress. She was in a couple movies this past year that I really like, Drive Away Dolls, and this movie called Cat Person. She was really good in too.
No, I think I know her just from Blockers and Drive Away Dolls.
Yeah, she's good.
But
She's funny. She was
yeah. She was, and she wasn't just a comedic relief. I mean, they actually gave her something to do later in the movie, so that was cool. But yeah, the Wendell Pierce character just being this politician that seems to be like, I get it, right? That you have both, and I mentioned on my Letterboxd review, I was like, oh, I didn't know. Nobody told me Wendell Pierce was playing Chuck Schumer, because just
right.
You have somebody like Bucky that's like, this person is a maniac. You need to do whatever. We need to attack what we have, and we need to get rid of it right now. We need to be strong. And Wendell Pierce is like, take it easy. We're going to recess, and then when we come back,
let's talk about it. Put it to a vote. Like, yeah,
I don't think it's intentional necessarily, but I think that we've reached a point in reality where like you can draw parallels to anything in fiction just because it's just so bonkers. So that tickled me a lot. But the idea, I think also that when was Endgame? Was 2019, right? So we're like pretty much 6 years later, and partly by design, and I think partly because they're kind of figuring it out. You've had the MCU trying to find its way post Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and Hemsworth's still there, but he's not an Avenger. So in the story of the movie and the movies, you've been seeing what happens when the Avengers are gone, right? And different factions, different heroes trying to fill that void. And but then in the real world, you also have seen Marvel trying to do the same thing. It's like, how do we continue the story, and what's going to be the new Avengers, right? And we've reached the point in the story where you are going to have two different offshoots, and I think that we've landed on a team made of these characters as cool. One of the Avengers. It's pretty cool. So cool. It reflects a little bit what's happening in real life, and I'm sure at least one of the screenwriters had to pitch that idea. I'm like,
it's
isn't
meta.
It cool?
Yeah,
it's meta.
It's super meta in that way. I do like that. You're right. So we talked about the mental health aspect. What about Sentry? So Sentry, you're the comic book dude. I'm not. I mean, I knew the character. Like, I was familiar with the character, and I knew he was like super powerful. But I also feel like, I don't know. I'm asking you, but I think, and I haven't researched this or looked it up or Googled it or even. I think there's characters in this universe that are stronger than him or more powerful than him. I'm thinking of, Dr. Doom, who I assume is showing up in Doomsday, but like Scarlet Witch, right? Like, isn't she? Couldn't she
she's
technically?
Dead, Gerald.
Well, I mean, her powers, though,
I guess. I mean, it's like what they say. And anytime that you pitch two comic book characters, it depends on who's writing it, right? You could have
That's true.
Spider-Man beat the Hulk
That's
if you
true.
write it a
That's
certain
true.
way. So the thing with Sentry is that he is so powerful. And mind you, I haven't. Again, I just know the periphery because I've never read any of the comics. I just remember when they introduced him, they had the mini series where the big reveal was that he was his own worst enemy, and then they had
Hmm.
him fight a whole bunch of people in the Marvel universe. You know, he became like a threat and beat the shit out of the Hulk and Thor and everybody else. And
Uh-huh.
I couldn't tell you how they stopped him, but I think that the whole point is that from what I remember in the comics and what they show us in the movie, he is too powerful to actually be let loose. So he's just a regular guy. You don't want him to become the Sentry because then
But
you're
he's gonna be.
risking him. I mean,
I mean,
not at
right?
the,
I mean, what a
obviously, yes.
waste. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
why he's still there. He's still there at the end of the movie. But
Well, what I also think is cool too, though, if he's that powerful, like Thor times 10 or whatever, that this like ragtag group of folks that have minimal powers got him on their side is kind of cool too, because now they like technically stand a chance as a group. You know what I mean? So that
right, but
was
they got
pretty
him on the
smart too.
side until he becomes the Void. That's the problem. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure the next movie will address if that's something that they even try. Right? Like, can you be the Sentry for like 5 minutes and then shut it down,
right.
or do they not risk it at all? But I think it's cool that even if he's just drinking his smoothies or whatever it is he's doing at the end of the movie, right? He's still
Yeah,
hanging out with them. I mean, Yelena
yeah.
tells him, "We're gonna keep an eye on you in a good
Well,
way."
and it built the rapport between, particularly with Yelena and Bob,
Yeah.
but it did build the rapport with that group, and he felt like he was a part of it, and he was a part of something that didn't bring him sadness or whatever, and it was usually associated with that group. Actually, one of my negatives about the film is some of the characterizations that were put into some of the characters, and I felt like it was a little lazy. Like, let me just see if I can give you an example. So, like the scene where he fights the Thunderbolts in Val's, high rise or whatever, and they go up the elevator and kind of meet him for the first time. And I just thought it was unearned and it was kind of weird that he was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to fight Yelena, who I was like becoming super close to. And the only people that have ever really shown me any kind of warmth because this chick is telling me to. I don't know. It was just weird. You know what I mean?
I
I just
just chalk
didn't.
it up to whatever it is that they like the process of him becoming the Sentry
Uh-huh.
uh,
But
made
was
him
she
vulnerable to
controlling him at that point or just kind of
not
influencing him?
controlling him with like a switch or something, but I think that she
Right.
just got into his head, right? He was a very
Okay.
vulnerable person, and
So
she
she was
knew
just kind of
what.
manipulating him a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and he
I
was
don't know.
his mind was deteriorating. I think as the movie went on. So
Because I remember thinking in that scene that he was gonna realize like, why am I doing this, and kind of like tell Val to go fuck herself. Which I mean, he did say that later, but not in that moment. He kept kind of fighting them until they ran off or whatever. But um, he did decide not to kill him though, because remember she was like, "You need to finish the job," and he was like, "Why would I kill my friends? They know they can't beat me." So I do like that he didn't go all the way, because then that really wouldn't have made sense. And the other thing too about the characterization I was talking about is the whole Bucky storyline is weird to me. Now, I don't know it probably as well as you do, but like, first of all, I don't understand that he's a congressman. I just don't understand that based on like the war
Gerald,
crimes and like all shit.
5 6 years ago, I would have told you never would happen. Have you seen the
uh,
people in Congress today?
I was gonna say, have I watched the news? Yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's not even what I'm talking about, but that was kind of weird when I saw that in Brave New World when he had his cameo in that movie. But anyway, all the other Thunderbolts have like borderline villain attributes and are definitely like outcasts in their respective, whatever their origin films were or whatever. Bucky doesn't really fit that mold, really, because he was under mind control when he did the stuff that would be considered villainous.
Yeah, but
And
still, I mean, Yelena was
I mean, I get it,
technically,
but
she grew up in a cult, so you can say in a way she was mind controlled because she was
that's
raised like
true.
that since she was a child, and uh, fucking Walker, the super soldier serum, probably like also enhanced his feelings of inadequacy and led him to,
Mhm.
I think that they're all people that have done really bad things, Bucky included, and the good part about having Bucky there is that he can show them that you can overcome them, right? All of them
Yeah.
are still feeling like they're guilty, and I mean Bucky has kind of owned his mistakes and in a way moved forward to overcome them and just become open the next chapter of his life. And that's kind of like what they did in the comics. In the comics, eventually, the Thunderbolts become an actual group of heroes, right? Like these villains that were pretending to be heroes after, I don't know, 2-3 years of adventures of pretending to be heroes, they
Hmm.
realize that they actually like being heroes, and
Yeah.
they have
Let's keep
so
doing this. Yeah.
yeah. And Hawkeye becomes their leader. In the comics, Hawkeye started as a criminal, so that's why he's the perfect leader for Thunderbolts there, because he was a criminal that became a hero, and so on. So I can see how they were trying to do the same thing here, where they just
Okay.
took a character that can tell them, "Hey, I've been there. It gets better.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I get that.
I can
I,
help you."
I
So that's
I get that connection. I get that connection. Yeah, is it weird to you, or is it, or am I just dumb? But like, I also feel like because at the end, let's talk about the end credit scenes and stuff. So we talked about them announcing that they're the new Avengers. Um, and I'll ask you this question that kind of goes along with the ending or the credit sequence. But do you think it's weird that he is not siding with, or at least is as quick to not side with Sam? I mean, aren't they tight? Like him and like,
yeah. But I think knowing the way that these movies work, I would give it at least a 50% chance that we're going to see that conversation in a
okay,
different movie, because he says, "I went and talked to him. It didn't go well," and well, that sounds like a really interesting scene. I would like to see
which is a
that
different
one.
right, which is a different conversation than what we saw in Brave New World, right? Because that was more just
Right?
like,
Yeah,
hey,
no,
what's
that's
up? You know, I
different.
miss you or whatever. Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
I get it, broad strokes, right? Because Sam is very much the squeaky clean guy. He's trying to do things by the book, right?
mhm,
And Bucky is hanging out with these murderers. So
right. And
I
Steve
can see
Rogers
how,
was his guy, and Steve Rogers
yeah,
handpicked Sam. So I don't know. It just seemed like, and like you said, maybe that'll come up in the next couple movies. I mean, I don't know, but to me, it seems like if you're just looking at it on paper, that Bucky should align with Sam and whatever that team is, personally. But
I don't mind. I don't have a problem with Bucky choosing to stick with these guys, because especially after what they've gone through in this movie, I think that they're tight, and he believes in them, and he
that's
thinks that
true.
he's a he's a good chance. He has the best chance to get them to be good. Uh, Sam having an issue with Bucky, that is a little weirder, but also I guess to the world they are Valentina's team,
Hmm.
and Sam has to know that Valentina's a corrupt politician. So I'm sure that for him, it just looks like Bucky's being manipulated by a corrupt politician.
He
Whereas
feels some
I
kind of way
think,
about it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's
Um,
the other way
I,
around, maybe.
I want to ask you about the end credit scene before we wrap up, but I did want to tell you that I got to see this at like the premiere the night before, or whatever, so it was packed, and
Uh-huh.
I was in there with the full theater. It was the Dolby Cinema, so it was great, projection, great sound, and whatever. But my favorite scene in the whole movie, at least that's action related, is when Bucky comes to like save them initially on that
Yes.
road in the desert, and he starts blowing up the cars and shit, and is helping them get out of that situation. I mean, the crowd was cheering in my theater, and like it was really cool. It was really cool. The effects were really good in that scene. By the way, there was a lot of practical shit in this movie, which is another thing that's a little bit different than all the recent
Yeah, I
MCU
read
stuff.
about that. Yeah, that Feige
Um,
was pushing for it.
yeah, so that was a really welcome change as well, because I've made a joke before that recently the CGI last acts of these movies just look like unicorn vomiting all over the screen. It's just colors and just craziness. But this one didn't have that. It was much more grounded. Let's get back to the end credit scene. So, new Avengers, here they are. We go to the end credit scene, which was pretty substantial, at least comparatively to what we get sometimes with these end credit scenes. This one had pretty much had a lot of weight to it for future installments. But we get that whole conversation that you were talking about, where Bucky's like, I went to talk to Sam. He doesn't like that we're doing this. He's trying to trademark the name Avengers
Uh-huh.
because he has a team that are going to be the Avengers. He doesn't want us to be the Avengers or whatever. And we kind of get the impression they're at odds. And David Harbour has another priceless comedic scene where he comes in with the NASCAR jacket and changes the S to Z and all that shit, which is great. You talked about seeing Bob up there, drinking
Uh-huh.
milkshakes or whatever, just kind of staying out of the game. But we find out that they see a radar blip or whatever on their device there that says there's an unidentified object coming into the realm or whatever. I don't know, whatever they said. I don't know. Anyway, it turns out it's the Fantastic Four spaceship coming into the
Yeah.
atmosphere or whatever. So I don't know enough about the connections to the shit, but I do know enough to know that should be happening after the movie we're going to be getting, right?
Who knows? I mean, that's
I mean, doesn't that kind of
here's the thing. But
spoil what's
did
coming
they
up?
show you? Did they show you the trailer for Fantastic Four before the movie?
I've seen it.
Or
I've seen it. I can't remember if they showed it beforehand or not, but I've seen it.
like the most recent one, right? When
Oh, maybe not then. I saw the one that has, like the 1950s, fucking kitchen or whatever.
is
Maybe
it
it
the
was the
one
first
where?
one that I saw.
Yeah, because the most recent one, which I just saw before Thunderbolts, is the one where they announce what it looks like. One of the big things in the movie is that the Sue Storm is pregnant, right? So I guess
Oh no, I didn't see that. I didn't see
yeah,
that.
um,
I haven't seen
it was
that as
really
we're
good.
sitting here. Yeah.
Well,
I do this thing too though, in fairness, where I show up 20 minutes late now to all the because I go to the AMC. Oh my
so
god.
you have to reserve seating, or
Dude, I have the reserved seating or I wouldn't do it,
uh,
but I have this seat, but I mean, I used to be one of those cuz I have a weird thing about being late. Like if I have an invitation or something that says be here at this time, I'm always like 5 or 10 minutes early before that time. And I
yeah.
would do that for movies too, like literally my whole life. And eventually I was just like, I'm too fucking old to sit here for 40 Coke commercials. Like, when's the goddamn movie start? You know what I mean? And so I just started going 20 minutes after the movie. So I probably missed it. I mean, I did see a couple trailers when I got there, but it wasn't Fantastic
Okay, well,
Four
I
stuff
didn't know if
like
it
this.
was because it was a critic screening. They just forego the
Nah,
trailers. So
they,
they
they
just
had trailers and shit, but yeah.
okay. Well, they showed the Fantastic Four trailer before this one, so it was kind of in my head already, and I was excited about the
Okay.
movie, uh, just
Okay.
because I like the way it looks. I think
Me too.
watching it, it made it very clear that unless they have some really weird explanation, this is not happening alongside any of the other movies that we've seen. Like
No, it
the
doesn't seem
aesthetic
like
of
it.
their world is different.
Yeah.
They seem to be celebrities in this world, which means that obviously this is not happening while the Avengers are around. So when we get their appearance at the end of Thunderbolts and you see the Fantastic Four spaceship or whatever, it's telling you because I guess I've always wondered since they announced it and they showed the footage. I was like, how does this connect? And I guess now I know how it connects, right? Like, they're
Yeah.
traveling from wherever their movie is happening. They're traveling into what we've been watching for the past 10 years, 15 years. So I
Right.
think that it's just a different reality, a
And
different timeline.
presumably to warn us about Doom, right?
Who
I
knows? It
mean,
might be Doom. Maybe it's Doom with the Fantastic Four ship there. I don't know. I can't wait
who
to
the
find out.
hell
I mean,
knows? Yeah, maybe it's
I'm
Ric
pretty
Flair. I mean,
excited.
I don't know.
Yes, it could be.
I'm excited for Fantastic Four too. I don't really know why though, because I don't know a lot about it. I love Vanessa Kirby. I love Pedro Pascal. I love a lot of people involved. The feeling I get from the trailer and the images that I've seen is kind of like WandaVision. Like, and I love that show. Like, it looks kind of
Mhm.
retro and vintage like that. So I like when they do something different. We'll have to wait and see if the story connects to me. But I mean, it's definitely going to look different, I think, than kind of like what Thunderbolts
And
did. Thunderbolts look different
yeah,
too.
and it's gonna be a standalone. I mean, it looks like it until the very end. I'm sure at the end of the movie we'll see them cross over to to meet with the Thunderbolts and whatever.
And
But
that's kind of what
y-
happened in this movie too, in Thunderbolts too. It was kind of a standalone until that last 5 minutes, and I should have known that was coming. But at the same time, I was like, oh man, like just leave it,
that's
just
the
leave
good
it.
stuff, Gerald. That's the
Yeah,
good
I
stuff.
know,
You
I
gotta
know. All
connect
right,
it. That's what.
all right. So 8 from Julio, a 7 for me on Thunderbolts, 7.5 overall. Good score. I mean, best Marvel movie. I said in my review. Are you a fan of Black Widow 2021? Do you like that one, or am I crazy? Because I said best one since Black
I
Widow.
I no, I don't like it.
All right, so best
I
one since what for you then?
what have we had?
What was the
I mean,
last
Brave New World
MCU
was
you would have given an 8?
oh man, what have we had recently? I'm trying to even remember what was the one for.
Dude, nothing recently got an 8 from you. Please.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I gave Eternals an 8, and everybody hated Eternals.
What?
I thought Eternals. You talk about doing something different. That
What?
was Eternals told like a
Uh,
generational story.
yeah. No, they fucking did something different. Yeah. I mean, I didn't hate it in fairness, but I probably would
Yeah,
have given it like a
sexy.
6, maybe. Yeah.
Uh,
Okay,
oh
so best since the Eternals for you. That's going to be on the poster. Best since the Eternals. That's where you're going with.
it's definitely better than Black Widow. I'm trying to remember what else. Better than the Marvels.
Yeah.
Um,
last MCU movie you would give it an 8 to though. Probably Endgame, probably right.
no, Endgame is a 10. I like
But
Quantumania. I don't know if I gave it an 8 or a seven and a
oh wow,
half, but I thought Quantumania was a lot of fun.
okay, all
Uh,
right. You're one of the
you
defenders of
know,
that film.
I am the target audience for this kind of stuff, man.
Yeah,
You
no, that's
just
great.
do it, and I'll just eat it up
No, yeah, dude,
and
have
find a way
fun
to
with it. I love it.
justify it.
I love it. That's why I wanted to have you on the show to talk about it too, because I know you love it and you're passionate about it. It's great, and you kind of help me understand some things, and we'll see. I mean, the funny thing is, you're you, and you said you'll eat it up and you love it and do whatever you want. I'm there, whatever. I'm gonna be there too. Now that's the irony. Like I'm gonna be there. Like Fantastic Four, we are just talking about. I will be seated. And if I get an advanced screening, I'm going. I'm gonna check it out, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I think that they found something here with Thunderbolts. Just in wrapping up, and I'll get your final thoughts. I think they found something. Like it's connected, obviously, but it's different. It feels different. It's real. There's a lot of practical stuff in this movie that you don't always get with these films. The characters, I already mentioned this, they don't seem alien or otherworldly. They're just like people going through some real people shit, and they need support around them, and we all do. So you connect to that on even a deeper level than you do sometimes with the broader hero villain kind of stories. So I really loved it. I love the action sequences. I thought the fight choreography was really cool. We didn't talk about Taskmaster, but they did her dirty AF in this film.
Yeah,
I mean, oh my God, she was in like what one scene, and like that was it. And then they were stealing shit from her fucking purse or whatever. I mean, it's crazy.
I don't think that the trade off was not worth it. Right, the shock value of seeing her shot in the head and be out of the
Oh my
movie
God,
right away is not worth really wasting that character after you spent kind of
no,
a whole movie setting them up, in the Black Widow movie. So yeah, that's a bummer.
that was weird. I mean, there was a
She
couple
might come back,
minor gripes.
they'll come
Yeah,
back.
there was a couple minor gripes I had about it, but overall, like I said, I mean, I really like Black Widow, so it was the best one since Black Widow for me, which I also think I probably would have given a 7 to. Before that, hell, I don't even know, maybe Endgame before that, in terms of like, I probably gave Endgame like an 8 or a 9. It was really good. I liked Infinity War a little bit more, I think, though. Um, but I also, I have trouble separating those two. I kind of think of it as like one thing. But if I'm just looking at the individual pictures, I probably like Infinity War better. But nevertheless, the point being, it's the best MCU movie I've enjoyed in several years. Give me your final thoughts on Thunderbolts, Julio, and then we'll wrap up.
I liked it a lot. I don't
Yeah.
really. I think it's a nice. I read somewhere. Look, like I said, I don't really keep up with the overall like media blitz, but I read that this is the final chapter of Phase 5, which I had no
I think
idea.
so. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I think as a final chapter of whatever Phase 5 has been, it's actually pretty interesting.
hmm
There is a lot of stuff. I mean, look, as much of a super fan as I am, there's a lot of stuff that I just haven't watched yet, or just don't plan to watch at all. I have zero interest in Moon Knight. Uh, I can't imagine anything happening that would make me go back and watch Moon Knight. The new Daredevil, I still haven't watched it. I'm going to at some point. I just to find time to do it with my wife. Um, so I guess what I'm saying is that once upon a time, I could have told you, oh yeah, this is Phase 1, this is Phase 2, this is Phase 3. I think
Right.
after it got a lot harder to really uh, keep up, easily. And
What phase
a
are
lot of
we
people,
in? Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people bring that up as a negative. I don't. I think that to go back to the whole comics uh, side of it, you don't read all the comics Marvel publishes. I mean, you can if you want, if you have the money and the time. But usually, what you do is you just find the characters that you like, you find the writers that you like, and you follow those. Every now and then, they will cross over with other titles, and you might like check out some other stuff. But uh,
hmm
there's a very unique experience to reading comics and following those characters and the overarching themes. And the one big difference with movies is that in the movies, the actors are aging in real time. So you have a
hmm
limited amount of movies, of stories that you can tell. With comics, eventually, if you've been reading comics for like 30 years, you start seeing stories getting recycled, character arcs being reset. That's not really going to happen here, which is what makes the MCU exciting for me. Like, I feel like everything that happens to these characters is just keeps moving them forward until at some point, they're going to die or retire or, you know,
Yeah.
or they're going to botch it up so much that just nobody's going to watch. But
Yeah.
so far, I'm still hooked. It's been like what 10 years more than that now, and I just can't wait. I think that they did a great job with a movie that I wasn't even that excited about.
Yeah, I agree, man. It really was a pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed it, and I also enjoyed talking to you about it. I really appreciate you coming on. And we said this in the opening, but you're a great supporter of the show and a friend of mine. And anytime I get to talk movies with you, it's been way too long, and I love doing it. Live stream for The Cure is coming up. Are you going
Yes,
to be present for my segment? Because I need you.
I
Uh,
will be there. I haven't
I
even looked
have.
at the schedule. I barely know when we are going on. That's,
Oh, well, that's fair. I have no clue what I'm doing for my segment, but I think the only person I've talked to this about is Nick. But I think I'm going to do an old 2P style thing, and I'm going
uh-huh.
to have 4 or 5 guests on or whatever it is, and hopefully you can be one. But basically, we're going to list movies in a certain genre, and if I start, and I say Mission Impossible, and the genre's action, then you have the next movie you say has to have somebody that was also in Mission Impossible. So
Okay,
another Tom Cruise
okay,
movie or whatever. And then the next
right.
person has to say something, what I mean? It goes around, around, around. So I think, I don't know, like a 6 degrees kind of thing. But stay tuned, and
I like
we'll
it.
see
I
if
like it. You'll like ours because we're gonna do horror movies. So last year we did Disney
Oh,
movies. This year we're doing horror movies, and every time we hit one of our tiers, we're going to Alex and I are going to act out a scene from a classic horror
ooh,
movie, and people
all
in the
right,
chat have to guess which movie we're doing. So it should be
cool. Okay,
fun.
I'm into it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
All right,
I
cool.
mean,
Uh,
self-proclaimed horror guy. You have to be into
I'm
it.
fucking ready. I'm ready, dude. I'll watch anything you do, Julio. Why don't you tell them where they can find you and Alex on the Contrarians? You told them a little bit about the show earlier, but where can they look you guys up?
Just look for the Contrarians. Our website is wearethecontrarians.com. On social media, we're at Contrarian Prime. That's like Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. Gerald, you're still like mainly a Twitter/X person, right? Like you refuse to let the Nazis
I
win.
just
You're like,
started. It's not because I want to, though. I just started using Blue Sky more literally this week. I don't know if you noticed, but I just started trying to remember to post over there whenever I do something.
uh huh.
But I think it's just because I have the most following on Twitter, or I,
Yeah, I mean,
gain the most
that's
following over time on Twitter. And most of the people that I follow regularly are also on Twitter. So I think that's why. I
yeah.
do not go
I
on
had that
Facebook
problem
anymore.
too. I still have that problem actually, but it's little by little. I think you start moving your
Yeah,
base. Uh,
that's what I
Yeah,
need to do.
exactly what you're doing. Right. Every time I post something, I post on Threads, on Blue Sky, and then on X. And the interactions I engage with more are Threads and Blue Sky, and X is
That's
just kind of
cool.
like if nobody else, if you don't
The,
have anything else but X, just have X.
I
But
will
yeah, check
say,
it out.
I will say that the engagement on Twitter is fucking horrible. Like nobody engages with me unless I like tag somebody in it and then they share it and then it goes in a chain like that. But otherwise, like if I post something over there, like one maybe every 10th post or something, I'll get more than like 2 likes on it. So the engagement really sucks on Twitter. But you know where the engagement's actually been really, really good for me, which I didn't even realize is kind of like a thing. But when you are a YouTube partner, which I am right now, they have a YouTube community post.
Oh,
So I don't know if you've seen any of my posts over there, but it's like a social media kind of like feed basically. So I post my videos there and stuff too, but I can also go to the community section and put up a post basically, and I get a lot of engagement that way because it's basically everybody that's subscribed to my channel I think sees it. So
oh, that's
uh,
awesome. I
that's been
don't mess with
surprising.
YouTube that much.
Yeah.
Scares me because people are pretty mean on YouTube.
Oh my god, tell me about it. I'm sharing
You,
screenshots with
yeah,
you
I'm
all the
telling
time.
you.
Oh my god, I probably have 10 since we started recording. I have to go ignore all of them. All right, Julio, I love you, man. I appreciate it. I know I'll be talking to you during the live stream for The Cure, and I'll put all of Julio and Alex's information down below. If you're listening on audio, it'll be in the show notes. YouTube, it'll be down in the description. And this is the first official episode of the rebrand of the rebrand. Why is that a thing? Lights, camera, garage. I don't know. I'm doing it. So we'll see what
Asterisks.
happens. I don't know if we're doing an episode next week. Maybe not till after the live stream for The Cure, which is the weekend of the 16th. But Nick will be back the following week when we do Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. That might be the next episode on this feed. But either way, hang tight. And when I do a movie review, long form like this, I'll throw it up on the podcast feed. Julio, thanks again for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, as usual, as I knew it would be. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. You didn't scold me too bad either. I mean, you were supposed to take Nick's hat from him, but you actually did pretty good. You're pretty sweet to me. I like it. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon.